From everything I've learned about her, I think she would want us to end with smiles through tears. And so I would like to share a few things that Dan has told me about Kathleen that he said I could share. He has spoken of how everything she did was full of life and vibrant. She was not just beautiful inside, but beautiful outwardly. In Dan's words, she was deep with a softness of a rich, dark color. Her blue eyes always sparkled, and she had eyebrows that could open and close garage doors. Her feet were really special, and these were not just any feet. These feet had names: Pork and Beans. Pork, Dan says, was the right foot, a killer, aggressive and mischievous. Beans was the left, slower, gentler, and sweeter. I think this poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson seems to describe Kathleen. To love often and laugh much, to win the respect of intelligent persons and the affection of children, to earn the approbation of honest citizens and endure the betrayal of false friends, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. May you be at peace, Kathleen. Now the floor is open to anyone who would like to talk about Kathleen. And after that, we will be able to look further at the photographs and some of Kathleen's treasures. Thank you.
Okay,
My name is Nancy Parker. I was a nurse manager in primary care and medical specialties and retired in 2012. And there were 4 of us nurse managers, Kathleen, Lanny, and Rosalie. And between the 4 of us, we had primary care and medical specialties all sewed up. We would cover each other, as other nurse managers do, for not necessarily breaks, but vacations and days off. And we would get together in each other's offices periodically and share what was going on with us and whatever terrors were going on in our own clinics. After our retirements, Rosalie is still working as a nursing director, but all of us continued to meet. Not in each other's office, but Blowfish was our new office. And it was far enough away from General that there weren't a whole lot of other people from General, so we got to be alone with ourselves. Sometimes Gloria, our nurse manager, our nursing director, was able to join us. And again, we would talk about what was going on with each one of our lives. We would share what was going on there was always issues about mothers, wherever they were in Connecticut. And it was just a real sharing period, and it was really an open space for us all to feel like one and feel like we never left each other. Kathleen always picked the appetizer, and but I think, as you can see from some of this display, that Kathleen had a command of colors and fabric to express herself. Her basic color was shades of gray, and then there would be some pop color probably around her neck. She loved old fabrics and jewelry, and she enjoyed taking her stored treasures to the Alameda Flea Market. She recently had some stored fabric that was just this amazing pop of color, and she had this just classy coat designed, and the inside fabric was this scare you away if you weren't ready for it, and this nice sedate color on the outside. I once traded bake-like bracelets to Kathleen because she loved them, and she had a stack of embroidered pillowcases that I love, and we were both extremely happy. She loved to walk, as was already mentioned, and initially when she was still working, when I knew her breaks weren't to meet with us and gripe about whatever was going on, but to actually walk out the door on the second floor and go around the block. And that was Kathleen's break. But since then, she would, walk around in the city and especially hit the thrift stores.
Right.
Kathleen was very open with us about her diagnosis and her treatment. She felt very lucky that she could hand off the research and you being an advocate for her, because she didn't want to do that.
Right.
The last time we met, all 5 of us were together, and that was on the 13th of December. And although we have lots of pictures of the 4 and 5 of us saved up, we neglected to take a picture that particular day. Kathleen had an incredibly dry sense of humor, as Meryl already mentioned. She was refreshing, and she was a powerful woman.
Mm-hmm.
She was a warrior, and she was our sister.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to pay tribute to Kathleen and to Dan. Among us, I think you know, are Kathleen's sister Pat and her husband Mike, Kathleen's brother Chris and his wife Carrie, Dan's sister Barbara and her husband Wes, and Dan's brothers Dick and John, who have just come in. My name is Meryl, as you heard. I've been a chaplain at the General for 10 years, mostly in the ICU, and for a number of years overlapping with Dan, which, as I'm sure you all know, was wonderful. Dan has asked me today to say a few words to mark, as he puts it, Kathleen's transition from this life to the next. I've never met Kathleen, and so the words that I will use to talk about her today are actually Dan's, Carrie's, and some of yours and the rest of the audience. And later in the service, you'll have an opportunity to talk yourselves about Kathleen. One thing I've heard from everyone and that everything in this life is impermanent and changing constantly. Buildings, things, events, circumstances, relationships, us. But it's always so terrible, no matter how much we understand of that. So incredibly painful to lose the physical presence of someone you love so dearly.
Yeah.
And that loss has to be grieved fully for however long it takes and in whatever way it goes. The whole gamut of human emotions is possible in that process. So we might feel hurt or lonely, anxious, disoriented, helpless, angry even.
And I've been a good friend of Kathleen's for a long time, about 40 years. And Kathleen gave me this necklace, this bangle on Christmas Day, just a couple of weeks ago. And but the most important thing she gave me was her friendship. I never felt there was anything I couldn't say to Kathleen. We have so many fun times together. Kathleen and Dan. I actually took that very picture. I'm so happy to see it down in Mexico.
Yeah.
And past few days, it's been really hard to accept all this, but I keep hearing this voice, like Kathleen saying, "I'm still here, E. I'm still here." And I feel like she is. And she'll always be there for me. That's-
Wow, what a nice crowd. I'm an old friend of Kathleen's from the Tortoise days. And I want to say that I regret that I did not stay in touch with her as I should have. But a part of her is so much with me. And when I came into the bus company, she was very big sisterly to me. And she took me under her wing and made sure that we all had a place to live and a lot of fun, and was just a wonderful dresser and shopper, and she was really able to put that magic part of herself into something, which was our bus company, which was pretty regular until she got a hold of us. And I'm really happy to be here today, and I think all of us would be really happy to have a service like this when we leave.
Yeah.
And I can really feel her in here, and it's really precious. So thank you all for being here today as well.
Please do.
Tom is here, Dan's former roommate, to help me in case you can't understand what I'm saying, because I'm medicated but not necessarily enough.
No.
So we'll see. All right. So you may be wondering what possessed me to wear such a wild print dress today on a day that we mourn the loss of our beautiful friend Kathy. As background for the non-fabric people among you, I want to say that this dress is from a pop-up store on Fillmore Street, and Kathy and I both got a little bit obsessed with it this fall. The brand is called Zuri, Z-U-R-I. I don't have any stock in it or anything. But their dresses are made in small batches in Kenya, and they're from African wax print fabrics. There are many, many wild prints to choose from, and each dress has a name that describes the print. Kathy got 2 Zuris this year, and more on that in a minute. So in the early 1980s, Tom and I first met Kathy, a dynamic flash of a woman with a long, thick ponytail, chunky silver jewels, Bakelite bangle bracelets, and black leather. We were at a party in Dan and Tom's apartment on Filbert Street in North Beach, and Kathy walked in, a whirlwind force of light and energy. She was, I believe, in her post-Green Tortoise days, and she and Dan were making the most of San Francisco life, maybe back from the I-beam or another wild and crazy place. And needless to say, Dan's life took a dramatic turn when he met Kathy. And we were there to see it. Lucky. Tom and I left San Francisco for a year, and when we returned, Kathy and Dan had moved in together onto York Street, across the street where they live now. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Over the years, we had many, many celebrations with Dan and Kathy. Thanksgiving dinners with Kathy's famous apple pie, but also avoiding food poisoning because she was very careful to make sure that we got the stuffing out in time. That was her solid responsibility. We had celebration dinners when Dan and Kathy graduated from nursing school. And many, many parties as our friends had birthdays or got married or had babies or moved back east. And I said it to you. I'm right in there somewhere. I'll go take over in a minute.
We always heard a lot about Dan and Kathy's annual trips to the Southwest to see the desert bloom. Trips back east to visit the Flanagan and Rial clans. Kathy's mother's button collection and her miniature quilt passion. And even about Watsui sessions up at Harbin Hot Springs. You'll have to ask Dan about Watsui. Our kids will never forget, our kids will never forget one dinner together with Dan and Kathy. We had a meal, and after they finished eating some gooey dessert, Dan and Kathy both picked up their plates, brought them to their faces, and licked them clean. The kids looked at us and then followed suit. I think this says a lot about Dan and Kathy as a couple. They savored the goodness of life without regard for convention. Okay, this introduced me. Okay. Years ago, Kathy introduced Carol to the thrill of the hunt at Thrift Town under the 17 Reasons sign.
Just over there.
Good.
Yeah. I loved her beautifully curated collection of Fiesta ware and later the vintage Heath pottery. Each time I saw her, even out thrifting, I needed a couple of minutes to take in her ensemble. Each piece of her outfit had a provenance, and I loved to hear about the story about each one of them. Over the years, Kathy and I spent many hours together in the thrift stores, often just spotting each other mid-rack at Goodwill on 3rd Street or Sally Army. I'd be stopping off to decompress from work, and she'd be on her, what she called her Tuesday rounds. Kathy had quite the eye for fabric and design, as has been said, and we had recently joined the DeYoung's Textile Art Council. We were partners in crime, and we're always discussing a mythical product line. We could make that. Let's try it. So, I also appreciate Kathy's very diplomatic medical advice, and we relied on her a lot, as well as Dan. And she shared that with me even as she was fighting her own medical battles. Just before Christmas, we'd gone together to the KPFA craft fair across the bay in Point Richmond. On the drive back, I was recounting a family member's string of ailments and expressed how hard it was for me to stay sympathetic. I told her how I appreciated her careful and non-judgmental tone when she talked about medical issues with us. She said, "Yeah, you can't say just snap out of it, even if that's what you're thinking." I will try to follow her advice. Kathy gave me regularly bags and bags of beautiful garments which I either wore or found homes for. She gave me so many clothes that I regularly take people down to my sewing cave to select garments from what I refer to as Kathy's garment rack. In mid-December, I had a tea and crafting party to thank her, although I never told her that was my agenda. She had given us so many beautiful garments, many of them Eileen Fisher, and a few of her beneficiaries still hadn't met her. That day, Kathy wore her Zuri dress with the fishes. She had a lot of crazy blue African print with a lot of fishes on it. And it had a name, Swim School. And she confided to me that Dan had decided to buy her yet another Zuri, the one with the chickens. I was so glad when Dad told me that her Zuri dress, and the name of that dress was Hot Chick, had been delivered to their house while he was out, and she had opened the package and touched the dress on the day that she died. Kathy's last day included a fresh morning bun that Dan had brought her from Tartine, and her second Zuri, a Christmas gift from Dan, the love of her life. That is a pretty good way to go, I would say. In her life, she demonstrated some solid life principles that I hope to live by in remembrance of Kathy. Number 1, seek beauty and quality in unexpected places. Number 2, dress in clothes and jewels that you love. And 3, when you finish eating something really, really good, don't hold back. Go ahead, lick your plate.
I really don't have organized thoughts, so forgive me, but my name is Mary McGee, and I worked as a nurse at the General in labor and delivery with Kathleen. And I had been working outpatient, and I called up the nurse recruiter and said, I need to go back and have the more intense connections with patients. I need to go back into inpatient. And she said there's one position open, or the only positions is a training program in labor and delivery. And those, as we know, are precious and few and far between. I was so fortunate. And I started, I think, it was March 7th, 1992. About, you're nodding, Dan, is that?
Yeah.
And 1992,
Exact
and
date.
there were, I can't remember, like 6 of us maybe, tops, who were going to go into this training program. And Kathleen and I were 2 of them. And the reason why I got up without having thoughts together is I just want to acknowledge her as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
She was a team player, as has been said. She was smart as hell. She was organized, but she could let you see that she was stressed when she was, as we all were. We've said she's funny as hell. And she would just, all, to say the word again, hell would be breaking loose, and she would just go by you and make some witty comment. It just was, she cared deeply about the women that we were caring for,
Yeah.
deeply.
Yeah.
And she had a political and social analysis around working with marginalized communities, and I respected that deeply. We had to wear scrubs, and so often the way we could express ourselves creatively were, earrings with our scrubs, so of course, and sometimes Kathleen would have on a bracelet, but we would, at parties, and when we would, you would come to work dressed, you would change into scrubs, you'd go home. So we would see, Kathleen's fabulous, fabulous style. She served as our nurse manager. And that's really difficult, to be a staff nurse who takes on that role and has to be in a different mindset and have a different relationship with the staff nurses. She was an advocate for us. She was an advocate for the patients.
Yeah.
She loved San Francisco General.
Yeah.
I know it drove her crazy, like it drove a lot of us and drives a lot of us crazy, but that's the bureaucratic, desperate for every penny we can get to give the best care we can get. But she loved the general, and she's deeply respected, and what's so beautiful to me is that so is Dan, that they each have made such a contribution, such a lasting contribution to the community that exists at the general, and boy, did that community, it sounds like, show up.
Yeah.
There are people that I know aren't here today that have said, oh, I have so much respect for Kathleen and Dan, you know? And it's that beautiful thing where each person of a couple makes their unique contribution, and then their contribution as a couple. And are we so lucky
Thank you.
to know the two of you.
Thank you.
So I'll just say one more thing, and that's that Kathleen and I bonded over being Irish. My last name's McGee. My sister is married to John Flanagan. Kathleen grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in New York. But she was that kind of Irish that I wish I were. Unfortunately, I'm kind of that, like, I never had a feeling that I didn't have to announce loudly. At some point, our wonderful Jillian Otway was nurse manager. And every once in a while, I just couldn't stand it anymore, and I'd go into her office and rant and rave, and she'd come out and say, Mary's quitting again. But Kathleen, she knew how to she knew how to hold on to the rudder and keep her eye on the prize, which was just to really give good quality care, be respectful to your colleagues, try to make it fun. And she had this wonderful composure that I think allowed her to deal with, you know, the bureaucratic stuff that comes up and the budget stuff that comes up, and then decisions that get made that no one really wants to make, but they feel they have to. And I was a little bit more of like, storm the barricades and make a lot of noise. But Kathleen, she had that just groundedness and that keep going, and you know, this will blow over too. And she took it from place to place at the general. And I just admire her deeply, and I realize I've been up here a very long time, so, which is another Irish trait. But I feel so fortunate to be part of this community and to have worked with her and known her and laughed with her, and to know you, Dan. So
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Oh dear. That was it in a nutshell.
Hi, I'm Janine. I consider myself one of Kathleen's newer friends. I've only known her 22 years. I've known her so long. And I don't have anything prepared to say. I just want to let her and you know that she brought so much to my life and taught me so much about jewelry and buttons and fabric, and I'm a sewer, and she would always bring me fabulous pieces of fabric to sew up. And I will miss that. I don't know who else to ask for information now. What is that button? And she was
proud to be a nurse.
really special. And I'm just so glad to be here to celebrate Dan's better half. And I wish I'd known her better. But I feel like I know her a little bit just by enjoying being part of the 40 family with Dan. They're both really special people. Anybody can teach you to lick a plate. Number one. And I just, I'm so pleased, I'm so happy that I belong to the General family, and I hope you all feel the same. And I'm sure she was a beautiful part of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I used to be part of the General Hospital family, but now I'm part of the City County Department of Public Health. I'm sort of super nervous because hearing about Kathleen's passing brought back so many memories for me as a brand new nurse in labor and delivery. And I've been a nurse for almost 20 years, and Kathleen was such a special, wonderful person to be there. She was one of my first nurse managers, very amazing mentor, really caring and smart and decisive, just really a wonderful person to learn under. And then she went to the OR, which was sad for us, I think really good for her. She really wanted to branch out and do something different, and she'd come up and teach us things about OR techniques. They're really important. Kathleen, I don't know if she made them, Dan, her scrub caps.
She did.
She made those scrub
Yeah.
caps. She gifted me
Yeah.
one. I should have worn it.
Of course she did.
They were these amazingly beautiful, handcrafted, wonderful fabric. I'm sure it was some really special fabric
Yeah.
caps, and so made the OR a lot more beautiful because it's a very sterile area, environment. And then Kathleen moved into managing 5M, and my career changed a lot. I went from being in labor and delivery as a nurse to being an educator. Kathleen and I were educators. She was in the OR, I was in the birth center, labor and delivery, perinatal area. And then I became the clinical nurse specialist, and she was a nurse manager, so I got to work with her again and more. And just all of my time with Kathleen was really special. And Dan, we always would see Dan come up and visit us in labor and delivery. And I went to the ICU a lot as a clinical nurse specialist and helped in really difficult cases, so I got to see Dan there. You know, just really brought back all these wonderful memories of my career, and she's a really important part of my career. I really loved Kathleen, truly.
Just to review. Well, hi, Demetria. So, you know, I really don't know where to begin to talk about my life with Kathleen, except to say that, you know, everything's a cliche in that way, but every cliche is grounded in truth and reality. And to have lived a life with her for 37 years,
Wow.
what I always told her was I felt like a sweepstakes winner. You know, and so, you know, things in couples, of course, obviously, there's annoyances and stuff like that. But when she had cancer, there was nothing that she did that annoyed me. It was just pure love. It was unconditional love, unconditional love. Oh, to feel that, and like Merle was saying, that was her favorite phrase. I didn't rehearse this. Love is power supreme. So, but, you know, when I came home, so what happened? I don't know if you want to hear this, but okay. Because you know, it's therapeutic to talk about it. It doesn't change anything. But, so I went out grocery shopping, and I came back, and I opened the door, and she was prone. And I thought she was crying. I thought she was just crying. But then I went towards her, and she was mottled, and she was having agonal breathing, which is gasping. So here's the worst nightmare in your life, actually. Flipping her over and starting CPR on your love that you've been tenderly caring for all this time with the cancer and a whole lifetime. But, you know, as a nurse, you kick into gear and you do your thing. So that's what I did. And then the paramedics arrived. They worked on her for about a half an hour, and they were just about ready to call it. You know, call the code. Most everybody knows what that is here. But Kathleen, her pulse came back. And I suppose that was so she could make it over to San Francisco General. Because the paramedics said that. They said, we're taking her to San Francisco General, Nora. So we took her to San Francisco General, and I was relieved. We got there. Nora was there. Debbie was there. It was wonderful. It was just James, Jeff Schmidt, just the whole team, the whole family. Debbie. And so obviously you're going to feel like you're in good hands, and that's what happened. So of course they were doing CPR on her again, and they did it again and again. And anyhow, she ultimately, she got through the scanner on a bunch of pressors, and the resident told me that, you know, she had a massive pulmonary embolus, and also that she had extensive cancer in her peritoneum, in her abdomen, in her belly. And that's what it was feeling like the last 3 or 4 weeks. You know, she wasn't going like this, she was kind of going down like that. Just able to do less and less and less. But also looking, like Merle was saying, her eyes moved a little bit more. She was looking into another world, another space. So we got her up to the ICU, and we weren't going to do any more chest compressions or CPR or anything like that. And you know, we were going to put her on ice, so to speak, cool her down, protect her brain. But it didn't look like there was going to be a real good neurological recovery here for her. So her heart stopped again. We let her go. People that she worked with, Jillian, myself, people that knew her, Debbie, Nora, Kelly, just a whole bunch of people showed up and were around her. Just so you know, she died with people that knew her and loved with her and worked with her. So that was, you know, comfort. That was comfort. So then I walked home with my soul ripped in shreds. You know, just experiencing that pain, that incredible pain that you can never prepare for. I mean, people died on 4E, and you got involved with them, and it was just gruesome. But this is like that was nothing. So anyhow, everyone reassures me that this gets better, and you know, hopefully, you know, to be tried here, but someday I will be with her. It's just a little delayed. It's like she went back to Connecticut for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, for 30 years, or 20 years, 30, 40, make it 100 years of age. So anyhow, I just loved her more than anything, and I will miss her, and I will be in need of friendship and all the San Francisco General family, and I will cash in my chips. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Wow, it's just absolutely, it's just beautiful, and I knew it would be this way. It would be a love fest for her. So, thank you.